MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries is my first ever experience of the MechWarrior series, and for a game that's apparently been around since 1980, that's quite surprising. I guess that huge metal mechanised weapons have never really appealed to me that much before, but something about the trailer for MW5 really captured my imagination, and I'm so grateful to the devs for providing me with a review key so that I can review it for you today. I've learned a great deal about MechWarrior in the last 12 or so hours that I've been playing it over the last 2 or 3 days, and the majority of it is very positive. MechWarrior has a very active, friendly and helpful Discord community who, despite being unable to help me set up my Thrustmaster sidestick, were very helpful indeed, and the community who support this game were absolutely paramount in enabling me to figure out how to add the Thrustmaster sidestick myself. You can find my controller binding set up within the online documentation for MechWarrior 5, so now everybody can use that joystick.
Acknowledged. I have a visual.
It's client-wide, sir. We are evacuating.
We need to take what we have and go. The fastest way is across the swamp. Captain, where are you going?
MW5 has a campaign with a built-in tutorial. It's quite good for the basics, but it's not that comprehensive. It also has a career and a quick action area where you can randomize or choose which battle parameters you want. There are numerous biomes to select from and mission types to choose from as well, and there are varying weather conditions too, which can have adverse effects against your visibility and radar detection systems. The campaign and the career are both very similar, both operating on the same star map with identical systems, locations and mission types. The only real difference that I could see is that the career doesn't have guided progression, and as such you are free to play as you wish. Both allow for cooperative play of up to 4 players, and how this works is that one player will be the mission operative, and effectively the 3 additional players, the 3 additional human players, will take place of existing pilots and play within the confines of that initial player's campaign. So you can't bring in super heavy mechs and stuff like that. Some people find that quite frustrating and limiting. I find that quite immersive, and I was really looking forward to doing it. Now I did try to hook this up, but unfortunately it fell through and it didn't happen. The Discord though has a great number of players who are constantly looking for someone to play with, so I will probably explore this aspect of the game in the near future. Instead, I utilised on focusing on the in-game UI teammate commands using voice attack. I've got to say that that works really rather well.
Of an industrial centre marked at nav point Alpha. Be sure to watch your fire around any pipes or tanks, as the contents have the potential of being explosive.
Target acquired.
Attack my target.
Engaging. Enemy destroyed.
The game actually has an incredible amount of depth to it, with quarterly expenses that have to be met one way or another. The expenses are counterbalanced by successfully completing missions and earning cash rewards, or by obtaining plunder from those said missions and then selling either the parts or the mechs on the mech market. But you will also need to hire and pay pilots who will accompany you on those missions, and they are pretty vital to your overall survival. The initial cost of hiring them is quite high, but then usually the monthly expenses that they incur are pretty low and manageable. You can rank these pilots up by getting them to use specific weapons, and this can really help you to shape and control your lance. Lance meaning a collection of mechs. Damage that's sustained within missions can reach the millions of pounds to repair, but can be offset during the negotiation stage prior to the mission's start. But MW5 is tough, right from the very beginning even, and new players will discover that every mech has its weak point, and if they get exposed, things can turn south very quickly for both you and the enemy AI. It's all too easy to lose good pilots that you have spent a lot of time ranking up. This game is tough. Graphically, I found MW5 to be of a very high standard. I believe they're using the Unreal 4 engine, and it has been used to really enhance the explosions, and they do look very good, especially running in 4K as I was. which was running at a solid 60 FPS without any issue at all. And the variety of biomes I find to be incredibly impressive as well. Some of the buildings don't look all that good, but when you start shooting into them and destroying them, the ability to smash the living daylights out of everything kind of supersedes the fact that they don't look necessarily that impressive. No airstrikes available, now it's available.
Alpha 1-1, read you 5x5, standing by for the fireworks. Sierra 2-1, out.
Stand by for packaging. Target Foxtrot 0.
They are hurt, but our contract calls for us to wipe them off the face of this system.
The audio for me is a little bit lackluster. Great and realistic audio is absolutely essential for immersion, and I felt that these enormous, thunderous machines lacked any bite. The audio from them walking, jumping and firing their weapons should literally shake my spine, but at no stage did the audio trick me into thinking I was really driving a mech. As such, the game lacked complete immersion. It was fun, it was a lot of fun. It's quite arcadey, I guess, in that sense, but it isn't really immersive. It could be, but it's not.
Now, if there's nothing else, gonna get back at it. All right, lot of work to do. Story
The voice
of my
acting, on the
life.
other hand, is extremely good, of a very high quality, and very believable. As such, that actually did help keep the immersion going in terms of the mission progression. The core of MW5, though, is of course the mechs themselves, but I can't really say too much about them because I am very much aware that I am no expert. I drove a few mechs myself, the Javelin, the Centurion and the Locust, and they all felt very, very different, which is great because they can be used in very different ways. I drove a good number of other mechs in the quick matches too, and I fought against a lot of different mechs as well during the campaign. The combinations of weapons, armour and resources that need to be combined and kept within a mech weight and a mission weight limit is addictive, and I barely feel like I scratched the surface on this part of the game. For a beginner, I feel like there could have been a lot more and better guidance, especially in these kind of areas, because at first glance the game can be quite overwhelming. That being said, once you spend a bit of time playing it, the complexity seems to melt away and you realise that it's actually very intuitive and easy to understand. However, I made many costly mistakes before, during and after combat missions, so a little more guidance would have been a help for at least my first few hours in the game. Now, as you know, I'm always looking for ultimate realism, so I decided to hook up a full controller rig, rudder, pedals and a full HOTAS system. But controller support for MW5 is poor, to say the very least. Some devices are supported out of the box, but neither my Cytec rudder pedals or my Thrustmaster A320 side stick were on that list. Thankfully, somebody in the community had already created a config for the pedals. I just had to find and write my own binding controls to make the side stick work, and it took me about an hour or so, but I did manage to do it. My initial tests were very promising indeed. Everything seemed to work okay, but binding and adjusting the axis inputs are simply not available within the MW5 setup page. So I did run into some issues with my old dirty rudder pedals, causing me a bit of friction. That requires me to increase the dead zone, which has to be done in the config file, which means I have to quit out the game, change the config file, load the game up, test the settings, which means I have to load into a quickfire game just to see if the slight tweak that I just made is any good. and if it doesn't work, I have to do the whole thing over again. It's tiring. The general consensus seems to be something along the lines of, we've made a chocolate teapot. There is one available, but hardly anybody uses it, so what's the point in making it any better? Yeah, that's kind of the problem. The built-in controller support and configuration is appalling, which makes setting up a fully immersive controller system and making it work exactly how you want to is not only time-consuming and frustrating, it's relatively impossible. For me, it mostly came down to the fact that the sensitivity settings that are available are limited, and the max amount of sensitivity that you can add for the controller just isn't enough. Anybody using a full HOTAS system is, I think, considered to be mentally unstable, and I can kind of see why, having spent hours trying to do it myself. It is fair to say, and I've tried all 3 different options, the keyboard and mouse is definitely the most responsive and it's definitely the most accurate, as you would expect. But all of that can be overcome using a full HOTAS system. You can become more proficient. You could beat even the best keyboard and mouse players using a full HOTAS system. If that wasn't the case, then we would be driving military tanks with keyboards and mouse too.
Captain Mason, what's your status? I've got a bug on my tail.
Setting up a full HOTAS rig is a painful experience, but man oh man, it does add so much to the realism. It becomes far more visceral and palpable too. The only other thing I would like to see added to this game is head tracking. I don't expect to ever see it, but that combined with better audio would make this arcadey game incredibly immersive.
Don't know about you, but I'm getting quite immersed. Oh, he's back.
I've really enjoyed reviewing MechWarrior 5. I hope to be able to return to it and play the full campaign again. I definitely recommend this game, and I urge you to at least give it a try. This is a great game, it has a great community. I'd like to see it head slightly more towards the realistic simulator direction, but that's just because I like things to be hardcore realistic, and at the moment it doesn't quite qualify as that. But man oh man, even though it doesn't, it's a lot of fun. I hope this review's been helpful for you. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Take care of yourselves until next time. Goodbye.
You're going to do great things. I just know it.
I'm sorry, Captain. I have to get us out of here. Hold tight.